Hi, I'm Adam Juniper of AJPC, and I'm going to quickly explain what the publishing term blad means. Blad is a word that is a corruption from the letters book, layout and design, and it's a way publishers show the designs for planned books without having to actually make the whole book. What typically happens is that they will commission about 4 spreads, 8 pages worth of the book, and to get a table of contents. I'm holding in my hands a blad and its book. They look pretty similar when I pull them apart, but when you turn them on their side, you really see the difference. The finished book has traditional front matter before getting into the introduction, and then fully laid out illustrated designs, and carries on. It's a great book, by the way. I wrote it, so you should rush out and buy this if you're thinking of going smart home. The blad doesn't work quite the same way. This is created before the book's written, for the most part, and what it does is it has 2 purposes. It's used to sell the book into bookstores, so books have an idea of what they're buying for the next season, even before the book's finished or before the book's printed. It's also used to sell the book to co-publishers, publishers that might be publishing in another language or another country. And those publishers will again want to see what they're getting, and ideally you want to get them on board as soon as possible so you can earn the royalties from those sales as soon as possible. So here again we see a pretty much complete table of contents, even though we don't see the same pages in the same order. Instead, the author has selected 4 topics from different points in the eventual book to give a good idea of what the book's going to be. And the publisher has had this designed and laid out. It's not exactly the final design, but it's pretty close. At the back, though, you'll see there's no index or glossary. It goes straight onto a back page. There's no especially high quality finish. That's because only about 30 of these are ever printed. It's exactly the same size and shape as the final book, because that's important in sales to help people understand what they're getting. Typically only 30 seconds to a minute is the amount of time this will spend in the hands of the person who might be considering buying it, might consider buying it into their bookstore. So all of that sales information is presented on the back, including some additional details which are relevant to bookstores. Similarly, at the front, we go straight into that table of contents. So the table of contents is how we show our working, how we show that we've thought through and have a good book idea for the potential co-publishers and for the bookstores. And then we have some samples of the material. It's worth remembering that things can change. So here we have the original blad for what was then called the Soul of Fashion Photography. And here we have the final book. It became Fashion and Lifestyle Photography. And as you can see, a different choice was made of cover. This photograph hadn't been taken when the blad was made. But the broad design styles, typefaces that we see in the blad, we also see used in the page layouts for the final book. So the blad has 2 jobs. For the sales department in the country you're publishing in, it is something that can be used by the sales teams to make sure your book gets the best possible placement in bookstores. It shows that the book is a good quality product and worth having. And for the foreign rights sales department, it's something which can be used to drum up trade as soon as possible to make sure that your book gets into those translation markets as soon as possible. And all of that helps earn extra royalties. It's a good way as well of ironing out some issues and giving you a chance to think about what you're doing and to get some practice in writing into the spread format, because the spread format, which are a bit like blog posts or a bit like magazine articles don't necessarily work in the same way that you might imagine chapters of a book where you can just sit down and write thousands and thousands of words. There's an art to making sure that books are laid out. The spread-based format is important. I'm going to talk about the difference between spreads and chapters, and the reason we use spreads in illustrated publishing in another video. So look out for that one. For now though, it's important to know that a blad, a book layout and design document, is where illustrated books start. If you're working with a professional publisher, that's something you're going to need to produce at some point, fairly early on. Another thing worth knowing is in many cases, the books are actually given the green light only after the blad has been shown in foreign rights, because this is essentially an internal document.
So in summary, blad stands for book layout and design, and it's a pre-production sample of a book. It's often used, even before a book is commissioned, to test the likely sales numbers that a project like that would get. So you may well be asked to do it even if your book hasn't been commissioned yet. And the author will provide a table of contents, a TOC, and 4 spreads. Spreads are not the same thing as chapters. Spreads are 2 pages, but they are the key element of illustrated books. I'll be taking a good look at the difference between spreads and chapters in another video and talking about how to plan it. So if you want to see that, hit the subscribe button and you'll be notified when it's available.